up, everyone? Welcome back to Echoes of Elsewhere, the podcast where we chase the stories found in abandoned places. I'm your host, Courtney Autumn, and today we're diving into a topic that's honestly saved my ass more times than I can count, which is trusting your gut. Whether you're creeping through an abandoned hospital or trying to figure out who you can really trust in the URBEX community, or probably in any community, your intuition is one of the most powerful tools that you have. Not just for your physical safety, but for your mental and emotional well-being as well. Today, we're bridging the gap between personal life, mental health, and urban exploration. We'll explore how to listen to your instincts, both during your adventures and when dealing with people who might not have your best interest at heart. And we'll touch base on the more toxic side of URBEX, because your safety and your sanity matter. The first thing that I want to get into is trusting your gut in the field. URBEX can be risky, obviously. Abandoned buildings, sketchy neighborhoods, and of course the ever-present possibility of running into someone or something unexpected. Trusting your gut can mean the difference between an epic adventure and a dangerous situation. If you feel uneasy about a location, maybe you notice fresh tracks, new locks, or something that just feels off, honor that feeling. It's okay to walk away. I have to tell myself that countless times, but it is truly okay to walk away. For my fellow female explorers especially, your safety comes first. If your intuition says, don't go in there alone, then don't. Very simply put. Or if you're with someone and their vibe starts to feel off, pay attention. Our instincts are literally made for survival. They're not random. Ignoring them does no one any favors, least of all yourself. And listen, this is also the importance of having a trustworthy friend tagging along. Sometimes my own intuition is off because I love URBEX so much that getting into a bando is like experiencing Christmas morning over and over again, especially if there's a little challenge involved. Then I get really too far gone sometimes on the excitement level. And as many of y'all know by now, Backroads to Abandoned and I explore together a lot. And I'm glad for it. There have been many times when my excitement level has peaked and she's walking around paranoid, which is rare. So I've learned to listen to her intuition as much as my own, because it's been spot on every time and has likely saved us from trouble on more than one occasion. And that works both ways. The same has happened to her where she's the one excited as fuck and I'm suddenly the paranoid one. For the most part, our explorers are chill and we both feel as relaxed as we possibly can doing what we do, and we have fun above all else. But there's at least always one of us that genuinely never loses sight of what's at risk. So, like I said, even when one person isn't as aware as they should be, the other one is. And that's just one of many reasons why it's not just important to have someone to explore with, but even more so someone you can trust with your life and know that you're always on the same page. Now, let's get into trusting your gut about people and URBEX, and I'm sure this can apply to any community really, but for URBEX specifically, it's so much more than just abandoned buildings and abandoned places. It's a community, And like any community, there are amazing, supportive people, and there are people who are in it for the wrong reasons. URBEX can be incredible for connection, but also a magnet for drama, egos, and people that treat exploring like it's a fucking dating app. And here's the thing. If someone gives you a bad feeling, maybe they're constantly involved in drama, spreading gossip, or pressuring you to share locations, it's worth listening to that discomfort. Sadly, I've heard countless stories of people using URBEX groups as dating pools or to manipulate others for clout, location trades, or personal gain. If you feel like someone's intentions don't line up with what's best for you, it's 100% okay to not interact with someone who you're just not vibing with. Whether they've given you a reason or not, if you're feeling off, that is reason enough, in my opinion. And at the end of the day, we're all adults here for the most part, and we don't owe each other anything. So, yeah. Your gut can also warn you about the people who talk a lot about respecting the hobby, but seem more interested in drama than exploring. And trust me when I say that these toxic patterns can impact your mental health, and it's okay, even necessary, absolutely necessary actually, to set boundaries. Like I said, you don't owe anyone anything. That includes entertaining drama if you're not about it. I've seen situations in this community go way too far, and there are people that are like very trigger happy to say out of pocket things to people that quite frankly should prompt a visit from law enforcement, or at the very least a really good therapist. So that's how far things can get in this community. Not to me personally, but the stories that I've heard and the things that I've seen just in the last 6 months has been enlightening and terrifying at the same time. So, proceed with caution is all I'm going to say, but always trust your gut. No shade from me. But the one thing that I think taints URBEX quickly for anyone with a heart for it is the community itself, which is sad. And you've heard it countless times from some of the most well-known explorers that have been on here for interviews. Their circles are small, and some stay to themselves completely and choose not to step foot in the community altogether. And there's a reason for that. There truly is. On the plus side, being in this community has also given me the honor of establishing some of the closest bonds I have ever had with people who love doing what I do as much as I do. And that within itself has been worth any ounce of drama brought to my table. So don't let the drama that seeps into this community sometimes get in the way of allowing people in, because some of the most genuine, kind-hearted, and magical people are urban explorers. But back to the point. Your gut can often sense who's genuine and who might have ulterior motives. If someone is constantly stirring gossip, demanding locations, or crossing boundaries, that discomfort you feel is worth acknowledging. So don't let anyone make you second guess yourself or your instincts. All right, I feel it's important to cover a question that I get asked a lot about intuition. Not just about URBEX, but any conversation I've ever had about instincts or trusting your gut or intuition. I always get this question, which is, how do you know if your gut is warning you, or if it's just fear trying to keep you in your comfort zone? I get that confusion totally, and I still experience that confusion. Not a lot, but sometimes. But fear is usually loud and anxious and frantic. It's the what if everything goes wrong spiral. It's typically rooted in a sense of insecurity. And intuition, on the other hand, tends to be rooted in security. It feels more quiet and more grounded. It's almost like a whisper from your inner voice. It's a subtle knowing that something doesn't feel right, even if you can't explain why. But usually, especially if you can't explain why. The best way that I can personally explain intuition is simply knowing without knowing. Like you roll up to a bando, it could even be one you've been stoked about for months, and you get there, and even if nothing looks out of place or there's no weird noises, it could seem totally fine. But for some reason, you just feel like something's off. You don't know what it is or why, but you know it's not exactly how you want to be feeling right now. That is intuition. It doesn't like present you with the receipts because it's giving you your warning prior to purchase. Does that make sense? Basically, I think it's harder to trust your intuition because your gut knows something is off before, not during or after something happens. So it's even harder to make sense of, especially if your desire or excitement is at an all-time high. It makes it nearly impossible to listen to or to trust your gut. But believe me, 100 times out of 100, it is spot on and absolutely worth listening to. And my ladies probably can relate to this most because we've all had that walking red flag of an ex. The one we literally saw coming and decided it was best to see for ourselves why something so desirable could possibly be signaling all of our internal instincts to run the other way, just to find ourselves eventually running the other way. That's your intuition. And it's honestly, I think, one of the best tools that we can have while living life, obviously, but especially doing URBEX. And circling back to the community, one of the best ways to strengthen your gut and to stay safe is by building a positive circle. Surrounding yourself with people who respect your boundaries, share your values, and listen to their own instincts. If you're always with people who rush in recklessly or dismiss your concerns, you'll start doubting yourself. But if you explore with people who discuss plans openly, check in on each other, and value honesty, you'll feel more confident listening to your own instincts. Having a trusted circle protects your mental health. You don't have to worry about hidden agendas, toxic gossip, or being pressured into uncomfortable situations. And most importantly, you have genuine, like-minded friends who support and honor you and your boundaries. And last but not least, how do we learn to trust our instincts? Which is, like I said, something I still struggle with sometimes and confuse fear from intuition, or sometimes straight up ignore my intuition altogether because I'm too stubborn, really. But some things I've learned along the way to really build trust in myself and hopefully can help whoever is in need build trust in themselves is reflecting on past times where your gut was right and when you ignored it. I'm a nerd also, and I'm in actual therapy, so I like to journal, which is a super nerdy yet effective tool for getting your shit together, really, in any case. But really, in this case, just being able to reflect on your own patterns and times you've ignored your instincts and maybe ended up in a situation you could have avoided. having those jotted down somewhere, even if it is just in your memory, but being able to really reflect on those times and have them stand out to you and be clear to you as an example of when you could have sidestepped a situation and you didn't. And I think that is just such an important thing to have, because you almost have to know when to avoid certain things in this hobby or in this sport or in URBEX, whatever you want to call it. And as with anything, give yourself permission to feel and act how you need to, even if others don't understand. And this one is so important. I cannot stress it enough, y'all. It doesn't need to make sense in the moment. If something feels off, no matter what it is, there is a reason, and you'd likely rather find out indirectly later, and odds are you will, and you'll be glad you listened to yourself. That's usually the case. And the next thing that I can recommend is to just talk to your circle, your friends, whoever you're with and whoever you trust. Sharing your feelings can clarify whether it's fear or a gut warning. And you'd likely be surprised how many people are on the same page as you, honestly, and just aren't saying anything because they don't want to ruin the explore or whatever else for any other people that might be there. Big Bank said one of the best things that I've heard about doing this during his interview regarding safety and listening to your gut, which is that you'd rather leave and live to explore another day than the alternative. And getting feedback from whoever you're with and respecting someone's boundaries if someone feels off provides a huge sense of relief and trust when exploring with others, especially if that same is returned to you. You know, if someone you're with or a group of people you're with is respecting your boundaries, especially if your boundaries are instinctual and they don't seem to make sense, you know, but you're kind of like, hey, I want to go, and nobody else wants to go, but they're going to do it anyway because you feel off. I mean, 10 minutes later, the police could arrive and then they're going to be praising you. You know what I mean? So it's just stuff like that. That's just like a small example of what could happen and really what should happen. You know, I think if you're with someone else, which hopefully you are, and you're not out there exploring by yourself, but no shade if you do, like mad respect if you do. I don't have the courage it takes, at least not anymore. But yeah, I mean, just communicating with the person you're with or with the people you're with, and even more so maybe even before you go in, and just be clear on the fact that, like, hey, if one of us is ready to go, we need to go. And let that just be a firm agreement from the start. And I don't think people even take enough time to have that conversation. And I think it's a very important conversation to have if you're about to go trespass. Like, let's just put it out there for what it is. And that's what it is. So again, just communicate with people, let them know where your head's at, especially if you're feeling off. And don't worry about ruining it for anyone. You know, if it's a bando and you can come back even tomorrow and you might feel better, I would rather take that risk than risk getting arrested or whatever the fuck the fate might be that's waiting on the other side of your decision-making process. You know, always make the best, most safe choice regarding your intuition. But more importantly, just remember you can't sharpen your instincts if you don't use them. So just do your best to honor yourself above all else and don't dismiss your own inner compass. Its literal job is to keep you safe. So just remember that. It's not your enemy, it's your friend. Listen to it. And odds are it'll make sense later why you felt off. I promise. Anyway, that covers everything I wanted to dive into about trusting ourselves and why it's important both in doing URBEX, but also obviously in our personal lives. Whether you're crawling through an abandoned asylum or figuring out who to trust in the URBEX scene, your gut is your most important survival tool, in my opinion. So learning to hear it, trust it, and act on it will keep you safe and give you peace of mind. Thank you, as always, for coming back this week to tune into the podcast. be sure to find me on social media at URBEX Echoes and subscribe and leave a review for the podcast if you haven't already. Thank you so, so much to those who have. I love all of you so much. Truly, y'all are the best listeners, I swear. Anyways, that is it for today's episode. I hope you found this discussion on intuition insightful and maybe even a little empowering. I am taking a short break next week for the 4th of July, so go enjoy your fireworks, your cookouts, the holiday weekend, and most importantly, stay safe out there. I will be back the week after with a very special guest. Until then, keep exploring the allure and the abandoned, the beauty of decay, and the echoes of elsewhere.